Yo, what's going on, Headliner Nation? It's your boy, the Doc, and we are back for the Week 6 injury update show. You guys know the deal by now. I, an actual doctor, go through the entire NFL slate, tell you about all the injuries that you need to know about, and one injury that is not going to be listed is me. I'm actually a little bit under the weather, so we're just going to jump right into the injuries, and hopefully my annoying, stuffy voice doesn't bother you too much when I go through these. Before we start, quick disclaimer. The projections on the screen are just what I think will happen with a player. They're not set in stone. Most of those are not guaranteed until Friday night or Saturday morning. So I will leave a pinned comment on this video that will keep you guys updated with all the official news. These are just projections for now. We're trying to get this out as early as possible so you can make lineup decisions. If you need to go scour the waiver wire, you can do that with as much time as possible before games start on Sunday. We do have 4 teams on bye this week. We will not talk about players from these teams. If you have a question about somebody, let me know in the comments down below. But Chiefs, Rams, Dolphins, Vikings off this week, so we're not going to talk about them in the video. All right, first up, we're going to talk about 49ers at the Seahawks. I know this game already happened, but Jake Moody's dealing with a high ankle sprain. He's expected to miss multiple weeks. I think he'll be back sometime around week 10 after the team's week 9 bye. Jordan Mason did get banged up. I'm going to leave a comment in the pinned comments down below on what I think's going on with him. Haven't really had a chance to look at the injury itself. He left, went to the locker room, came back. I don't think it's a broken shoulder or clavicle, but he's probably dealing with an AC sprain of some sort, and that's why he's missing some time in that game. Again, that's just speculation. I'll let you guys know in the pinned comment down below. A lot of defenders missing time, 49ers and Seahawks, so I'm not really going to spend a lot of time on those guys, but just know that they were major injuries. We expect them to miss multiple weeks for those injuries. Moving on to the Jaguars versus the Bears. This is a London game, so very early start on Sunday. Jags tight end Evan Ingram is back. He's practicing in full. The team expects him to play. I think you throw him in your lineup if you've been holding him and you don't really have any other options at tight end. Tight end's kind of a mess, so you just take what you can get. Running back Travis Etienne has a shoulder injury. I expect him to play, but he's being outplayed by Tank Bigsby right now. I'm not loving it if you don't get points for PPR leagues. If you're not in a PPR league, I just don't see how you can trust Travis Etienne when Tank Bigsby is getting all the work on the ground for the most part and doing way better with it. So disappointing if you drafted Travis Etienne, but you got to know when to jump off the ship. And all the signs are pointing to him having a bad year this year on the ground. Again, still getting some work in the passing game. So if you do get PPR, he's more of a flex option. He's not going to be that RB1 that you were hoping for when you drafted him. As for the Bears, they've got a bye next week. They've got a couple defenders that are expected to miss this game, but I'm not really looking too much into any of their offensive player injuries. I think they should all play, at least all the ones that we care about. Moving on to the Commanders at the Ravens. Commanders running back Brian Robinson Jr. has a knee sprain. He's going to be a game time decision. He didn't practice last week on Wednesday or Thursday either, so I'm not going to totally rule him out. He's pacing for a similar schedule this week if he practices on Friday. The problem I have is that I think he's playing banged up right now. He only averaged 2.6 yards per carry, did have a couple touchdowns last week, which kind of saved his day, but the team was averaging 6.3 yards per carry in that game. He's hurting, so he's more touchdown dependent than I would like, but he is still flex worthy just because they're going to use him on the goal line if he's active. They've also got a couple defenders coming back. You'd like to see that for a defense that's not really that great. And then the Ravens have a couple defenders that are expected to miss, but nobody really too important for fantasy. So we're moving on to the Cardinals at the Packers. Cardinals don't really have any injuries to talk about. So we're going to just head into the Packers and tight end Tucker Kraft. He's got a groin strain. He's going to be a game time decision. He was limited on Thursday. Didn't list him at all on Wednesday. So just know that this was a downgrade on Thursday. Just worth paying attention to if you're locking him in. He's had a couple good weeks. I know a lot of guys are just going to set it and forget it at the tight end position. If you're planning on starting Tucker Kraft, just keep an eye on him this weekend. I still think he plays, but I'd have a backup ready just in case. Wide receiver Christian Watson's got that ankle injury. He's back practicing in a limited capacity. Good chance that he could play this week. According to his dad on Twitter, it was not a high ankle sprain, so we don't really know what's happening with that. Could be the knee, but they've been listing it as an ankle, so he's got some type of ankle injury. It looked worse than what it ended up being. If he comes back, Dontavian Wicks kind of turns into one of those flex, hope something happens for him guys. Not really looking to start Wicks if Christian Watson is back in any capacity. Tight end Luke Musgrave's got an ankle injury. He could possibly be put on IR this weekend, so drop him if you've got him right now. Next up, we got Texans at the Patriots. Texans wide receiver Nico Collins, with a hamstring strain. He's already been put on IR. Pulled up after scoring another huge touchdown in week 5. Now he's expected to miss multiple weeks. Huge bummer. He was leading the league in receiving yards heading into this week. Normal return to play for a hamstring strain is about 4 weeks, so there's at least a chance he comes back after only missing 4 games, but still disappointing if you were locking him in and he was putting up big weeks for you every week. Now you got to find a replacement. You hate to see that for a guy having really another breakout year, ascending into possibly even a top 8 wide receiver in the league. Let me know in the comments where you thought Nico Collins ranked prior to this injury. I really think he was putting together at least a top 10 case, maybe even higher in the NFL for just one of the best wide receivers in the league. Running back Joe Mixon dealing with the ankle sprain. He's going to be a game time decision. Back to practice on Thursday, but I'm not sold that the team's really ready to bring him back this week. I'll be surprised if he plays. Really complicated backfield. Dameon Pierce expected to return. Still got Cam Akers. I'm just not going to deal with it at all this week and see how it shakes out. As for the Patriots, they got running back Ramondre Stevenson. He's got a foot injury. He said he took a helmet to the calf last week. I didn't note any issues with his foot in the game. It's kind of a mystery injury, but back-to-back DNPs, not a good sign to start the week. I would be surprised if we see Ramondre Stevenson in this game, just given the fact that he hasn't practiced at all yet this week. Moving on to the Bucks at the Saints. Bucks running back Rachaad White has a foot sprain. This one might surprise some people, but the video reviews of White's foot injury looked pretty bad. Did look like he had a pretty significant midfoot sprain. I would expect him to miss this week's game and maybe a few more games after this. He was downgraded on Thursday. Wednesday's practice report was just based on a walkthrough. I think the Bucks are trying to play a little bit of a game here with Rachaad White. Plan on having Bucky Irving lead the backfield in touches this week. I'm just going to go ahead and throw him into my lineups if I need some running back help, because I think Bucky Irving is going to get the majority of the run this week with Rachaad White dealing with this foot injury. As for the Saints, quarterback Derek Carr expected to miss multiple weeks with an oblique strain. Rookie Spencer Rattler is supposed to come in. We'll see what happens. He's more of a gunslinger. I'd be surprised if he has like an amazing first game against the Bucks, but I'm very hesitant to start really anybody from this offense if Spencer Rattler is the starter. We just haven't really seen him ball out at all as an NFL player, so I think there's some potential just given he's willing to throw and he doesn't really seem to be afraid of throwing the ball, but I'm still not like loving the idea of a Spencer Rattler led offense. Taysom Hill is out with the rib fracture. Alvin Kamara, he's missing time in practice, but I think he will play. Next up, we got Browns at the Eagles. Browns have 20 players on the injury report, but Nick Chubb, dealing with that ACL tear, is probably the one most people want to know about. I don't expect him to play this week. The team said they're easing him back into practice. He is practicing, hasn't suffered a setback or anything like that, but just know that I don't think that they're planning on starting him this week. I think it's still a couple weeks out before we see Nick Chubb potentially play in a game. David Njoku dealing with the high ankle sprain. He picked up a knee sprain last week. He's going to be a game time decision. He played just 25 snaps last week before leaving with that knee injury. Limited on Thursday, so at least he's practicing a little bit, but he's hard to trust until we see him play a full game without getting hurt. As for the Eagles, both their wide receivers are expected to come back this week. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. They're both practicing in full, so that's a good sign if you've got those guys on your bench. Moving on to Colts at the Titans. Colts quarterback Anthony Richardson is expected to return. He's got an oblique strain. He's back practicing. Don't see any indication that there's a quarterback battle, even though Joe Flacco has played well with Richardson out. If he's back, he's practicing, I expect him to start and be the starter. The problem is I don't really know who he's going to be throwing the ball to because wide receiver Michael Pittman Jr. is dealing with a back injury. He's been ruled out for the next few weeks at a minimum with his back injury. There's been talks that he could land on IR as soon as this weekend. So hasn't happened yet as of this recording, but don't be surprised if that news drops on Friday or Saturday. Wide receiver Josh Downs has a toe injury. He could potentially miss this game. I expect him to, just based on the fact that toe injuries, typically you don't come right back from a toe issue. He was working with trainers on the sideline and just didn't see a lot of optimism that he would be able to go full bore this week. So I don't expect him to play. Expect him to sit him out, especially if this is turf toe. Running back Jonathan Taylor also expected to miss with his high ankle sprain. So don't plan on him starting this week. Trey Sermon, Tyler Goodson, also options if you're looking for streaming options at the running back position. With how many injuries there are, don't be surprised if you're going to see some really ugly guys in your lineups this week. Not ugly like looks ugly, but just ugly. You know, not fun to throw into your lineups. I've got a few lineups that are just absolutely atrocious with players that I never expected I would have to play in a matchup that I was trying to win. As for the Titans, they don't have any injuries, so we're going to head straight into the midday slate. All right, let's head into the midday slate. We got Chargers at the Broncos. Chargers have 17 players on the injury report, but quarterback Justin Herbert's the one you're the most concerned about. High ankle sprain. He is expected to play this week, but anybody hoping that the bye week would completely heal Justin Herbert's ankle are sorely mistaken. He's still limited in practice. It limits his upside because he's not going to be moving around that well yet, but he's going to be better than he was prior to the bye. So he's still streamable, probably more of a quarterback 2 than a quarterback 1, but just know that Justin Herbert's still dealing with that ankle issue. His tackles are also back practicing. That's a good sign that they could at least have some help on the offensive line. He was really in trouble prior to the bye week, so at least they're getting a little bit better, but still quite a few players on that injury report. As for the Broncos, they got running back Audric Estime dealing with the ankle sprain. He was on the IR, coming back. He was getting a lot of run in the preseason, so if you've got a bench spot that you can just throw a waiver wire guy onto, see if you can pick him up for free, see what happens. If he's terrible or he doesn't play at all, you can obviously still drop him, but you might be able to get ahead of some guys on your waiver wire if you pick up Estime now, prior to the weekend starting. Now, let's go to the Steelers at the Raiders. Steelers running back Jaylen Warren dealing with a knee sprain. He's back practicing. I expect him to be able to play, and I'm not really looking to start Jaylen Warren. He's not looked very good this year. He's been dealing with injuries basically since the preseason. It's not really something I'm looking to just throw straight into my lineups. They have a couple defenders expected to miss this game as well. For the Raiders, it's mostly offensive guys. Devontae Adams still dealing with the hamstring injury and the trade request. He's not going to play. Zamir White has a groin strain. He's also not expected to play this week. Jacoby Myers, though, deal with an ankles injury. I couldn't really find anything in terms of the injury itself, but he's not practiced yet this week. If he doesn't practice on Friday, good chance that he could miss this week. And Trey Tucker becomes an interesting option as a streamer, wide receiver 3 based on volume alone. New starter. We'll see what happens with Aiden O'Connell at the helm. But Trey Tucker, Brock Bowers expected to be the 2 leading receivers if Jacoby Myers isn't able to go. Moving on to the Falcons at the Panthers. Falcons running back Bijan Robinson with a hamstring injury. I don't like seeing star players downgraded midweek with hamstring issues. He's officially on the backup plan watch and needs to be closely monitored heading into the weekend. I don't think that he'll actually miss time, but Tyler Algier becomes an interesting flex option if Bijan is not 100% heading into the weekend. As for the Panthers, they got a lot of dudes that are not expected to play this week, but nobody I'm really caring about for fantasy. So we're heading straight into the Lions at the Cowboys. Lions don't really have any injuries to speak of, so we're just talking about Cowboys wide receiver Brandon Cooks. He's got a knee infection. He was placed on IR after complications from a knee scope led to an infection. Infections are no joke, so hopefully he's able to recover from this one quickly and that there's no major damage done by the infection. Jalen Tolbert getting a chance to be the wide receiver 2 on this team and had a great week last week in that role. So he can be streamed as a wide receiver 3 again this week and probably for the next month or so. Micah Parsons, though, not expected to come back this week. So we're at least missing out 1 star defender for the Cowboys. All right, finally, we got the premier games. Sunday Night Football, Bengals at the Giants. Bengals running back Zach Moss has a foot sprain, similar to Rashad White earlier. This injury looked worse than the team is letting on. I would not be surprised if he misses this game. Plan for Chase Brown to have control of the backfield this week and probably gets the majority of the touches. As for the Giants, wide receiver Malik Neighbors still missing time with a concussion, not practicing yet. It's kind of concerning given that concussions usually are a 1 week missed and then you're back kind of injury. It doesn't mean that it never happens. It's just kind of discouraging to see that he's not progressing through that protocol very quickly. Again, Neighbors, to my knowledge, does not have a history of concussions and doesn't have a concussion on his record this season, which are two things that you look for guys to have extended recoveries. So maybe it was just a really bad one. Maybe he's just still having some light symptoms. Just know, unlikely for him to play on Sunday because he hasn't practiced yet as of Thursday. Moving into the final game of the week, Monday Night Football, Bills at the Jets. Bills wide receiver Khalil Shakir and running back James Cook are both going to be game time decisions. Thursday injury reports for Monday games are pretty useless. So we're going to keep an eye on this into the weekend. Again, check the pinned comment. But the good news is that because it's just a walkthrough, it doesn't mean very much that these guys did not practice. But we're still concerned because they did not practice, even though it was just a walkthrough. Of the two, I think James Cook has the better chance to play. But come back to this video, look at the pinned comment, and see for the update as we get more information about these issues coming into the weekend. As for the Jets, they got quarterback Aaron Rodgers dealing with the ankle sprain. He is expected to play. Lost his head coach, picked up an ankle injury in the same week. Not how the Jets expected this season to start. Aaron Rodgers is going to play, but he's not going to be 100%. He's probably already starting some excuses on why this season has gone as poorly as it has. All right, guys, that's it for this week's injury show. Let me know in the comments down below if there's anybody you want me to talk about or if there's any questions that you have. I try to answer as many of those as I can. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. It's free. It helps us out a ton. If you want to be a part of Headliner Nation's exclusive Discord, hit the join button, become a member of Headliner Nation. Those guys are getting all sorts of questions answered every single weekend about lineups. They've got all the injury updates. I do an injury live on Sundays over on our Discord after all the games where we talk about all the injuries from the day. So you get the information as quickly as possible, what I think is going to happen with these guys so that you can plan for the waiver wire. And of course, head over to our friends at Underdog. Use the code Headliners when you sign up. Get $1,000 bonus cash on your first deposit up to $1,000. So really great deal over at Underdog when you use the code Headliners. My Underdog pick of the week to finish this video is Brian Thomas Jr. hitting the higher on his receiving yards total. I just feel like Brian Thomas Jr. is going to get a lot of run. Even with Evan Ingram back, I still think that Brian Thomas Jr. is going to hit his over and hires more often than most players. He's got the big play potential. He's got all of the makings of a stud wide receiver. Make sure that you're getting these while the props are still under 60 yards. Just seems like free money over at Underdog. Again, using the code Headliners when you sign up.
Analytics off the chain, all the channels not the same. Jake and Kyle, you know the name. Headliner Nation, we running the game.